Sarah Mitchell clutched her boarding pass, a shiver running down her spine. The airport was unusually quiet for this time of night, the fluorescent lights casting eerie shadows on the polished floors. She glanced around, noticing the sparse number of travelers, each lost in their own world. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional announcement over the PA system. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, a sense of foreboding that seemed to cling to the air. Flight 2317 from Chicago to San Francisco was eerily empty. As she boarded the plane, the emptiness became even more pronounced. The usual hustle and bustle of passengers finding their seats, stowing their luggage, and chatting with flight attendants was conspicuously absent. Instead, there was an unsettling stillness, as if the plane itself was holding its breath. Only a handful of passengers dotted the spacious cabin. Each one seemed to be enveloped in their own bubble of isolation, their faces obscured by the dim lighting. Sarah couldn't help but wonder about their stories, why they were on this flight, and if they felt the same unease that she did. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the hum of the air conditioning. It was a low, constant drone that seemed to amplify the emptiness around her. Every creak of the plane, every rustle of fabric seemed magnified in the stillness. Sarah found herself straining to hear any sign of life, any indication that she wasn't alone in this vast, hollow space. She settled into her seat, 23B, by the window. The view outside was a dark void, the city lights of Chicago already far behind them. She adjusted her seatbelt and tried to make herself comfortable, but the sense of unease persisted. The seat felt cold and unwelcoming, the fabric rough against her skin. A wave of unease washed over her. She couldn't pinpoint the source of her anxiety, but it was there, gnawing at the edges of her consciousness. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts, but the feeling only intensified. It was as if the plane itself was alive, its metal frame vibrating with a silent, ominous energy. The emptiness felt wrong, unnatural. It was as if the plane was a ghost ship, drifting through the night sky with no destination. The few passengers on board seemed like phantoms, their faces pale and expressionless in the dim light. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were all trapped in some kind of twilight zone, a place where time and reality had no meaning. The air hung heavy, thick with an unspoken tension. It was a palpable force, pressing down on her chest and making it hard to breathe. She glanced around, hoping to catch someone's eye, to share a moment of connection, but everyone seemed lost in their own world. The isolation was suffocating, a stark contrast to the usual camaraderie of air travel. Sarah tried to shake off the feeling, burying her face in a book. She hoped that the familiar words would provide some comfort, a distraction from the oppressive atmosphere. But the story seemed hollow, the characters flat and lifeless. She found herself reading the same sentence over and over, unable to focus. But the emptiness seemed to press in on her, amplifying every creak and groan of the plane. The sound of the engines, the rustle of the flight attendants' uniforms, even the faint whispers of the other passengers seemed to echo in the vast, empty space. It was as if the plane was a living entity, its metal frame groaning under the weight of some unseen force. A bead of sweat trickled down her temple. She wiped it away with a trembling hand, her heart pounding in her chest. The fear was irrational, she knew that, but it was real, a visceral response to the strange, unsettling environment. Her heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. She could feel the blood rushing in her ears, her pulse quickening with each passing moment. The tension was unbearable, a constant, gnawing presence that refused to be ignored. This flight, she realized, was going to be anything but ordinary. The sense of foreboding was too strong to ignore, a dark cloud that hung over her like a shroud. She knew that something was going to happen, something that would change her life forever. And as the plane soared through the night sky, she could only wait, her heart heavy with anticipation and dread. no matter what it took. Waking nightmare. Everyone. Sarah watched in horror as the walls rippled and contorted. She could see the fear in the eyes, a creature of darkness and fear. The plane seemed to have a mind of its own, a malevolent intelligence hungry.